The problem is, right now we are adding a lot of greenhouse gases, which create more barrier in the atmosphere, and it warms our planet more. So basically 110 million tons every day of man-made pollution, CO2, are put into the atmosphere every 24 hours. And that's a problem. We used to never do that before the Industrial Revolution. Transport, coal plants, industrial processes. One of the biggest ones, and one that I'm going to talk about today, is agriculture. It makes up about 25% of all greenhouse gases. And just to put that in perspective, about 14% of all greenhouse gases come from transport. So that's all the airplanes, trains, planes, buses, cars in the world. All of those combined are quite a bit less than what's produced in the agriculture industry. There's a few reasons for this. It's pretty technical. Cows burp a lot and they produce methane. Methane is a greenhouse gas, and it's 26 times more powerful than CO2. But you also have other things like the way that we make our fertilizer now. Our synthetic fertilizers are a greenhouse gas. And we have a lot of other just natural reoccurring things that happen within nature that create CO2 and nitrous oxide and other greenhouse gases. Here is a pie chart to show you kind of where the greenhouse gases are coming from. As I had mentioned, agriculture is about a quarter of all emissions. You've got heat and electricity production. That's a big one, especially with buildings. They feel most people who look in this industry look at corporate buildings as a really easy way that we can basically reduce greenhouse gases through more energy efficient buildings. But look at that, transportation is 14%. And as you guys know, we're all trying to, take the bus and buy an electric car, things like that, which are all important. It's definitely part of the solution, but agriculture is an area that can be addressed right away, much bigger. So you've probably heard people talk about that climate change is a naturally occurring phenomenon and that we don't need to be worried about it because it's something that already happens on Earth ever since the beginning of time. And that's true to some extent. As you can look, we go back 800,000 years. You can look at ice core samples that they take from Antarctica and the Arctic. And basically they found this really interesting correlation. So you've got the amount of CO2 that is in the atmosphere, and for many, 800,000 years, let's go back 800,000 years to the last 100,000 years, it's always kind of varying between 180 and 260. That's kind of actually a little bit higher, 280, you see there. It goes up and down, throughout the ages. And this is important because, as you can see, every time the CO2, the greenhouse gases go up, the temperature goes up as well. And so you've got a correlation that you can almost always expect that when CO2 goes up, the temperature is going to go up. Now that's fine, but now, ever since the Industrial Revolution, and we've started creating our own greenhouse gas emissions, you can see that number. So that's where we're at today, 2019. 2019, we're up to 415, and actually it's more like 420 as of today for CO2 emissions. And as you can see, if you correlate how the temperature is going with the way it's done in the past 800,000 years, you can expect that the temperature is going to rise dramatically. As you can see, all over the world, we're starting to have record-breaking temperatures. At least, a couple hundred places around the world have set their all-time records for heat indexes. North Pole was 50 degrees hotter than normal. That's crazy. That's important. We'll talk about it later, but that's the reason why the ice caps are melting is part of what affects our jet stream and affects our weather.